Hello, everyone. This is Jennifer Sampou, and I'm going live today with Makers Chat. My special guest is Erica Jackman of Kitchen Table Quilting. Hi, there you are.
Hi.
So, good morning. I'm so glad you are here this morning. Thank you. I have admired your work for a long time, Erica.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I
Same.
It's been, I remember like the plaidish quilt. How long ago did you come out with the plaidish quilt?
So I think it was 2019, I think, when I came out with the Plaidish quilt. So it was before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic is when it kind of really became a project that a lot of people did while they were stuck at home, which was really fun.
Right. And not really going shopping.
Yeah.
So, right?
Using the fabric they already had, which was really useful. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was definitely it was sadly very difficult to get fabric there for a bit.
Yes. Yes. I know. I know my mother-in-law runs a shop in Lafayette,
Oh,
California,
wow.
and it was she as quickly as possible said, "Call me. We'll put together your favorite colors." It wasn't even your favorite fabrics, but just give
Mm.
us your favorite colors. We'll put it together and leave the bag on the front
Mm.
porch, and you just leave me a check. I mean, it was all
Wow.
very old fashioned, in a way, like honor system. And
Yeah.
um,
Well,
yeah,
it's amazing how many ways we kind of had to do things differently during the pandemic, and it kind of created some good things, some bad things, but it kind of helped, it made things different, interesting. It definitely changed things.
well, and how quickly humans can adapt,
Yeah.
right, to a
Hmm.
different
Yeah.
norm,
Yeah.
norm. So Erica, I want to learn all about you, and I know people on live want to learn about you. Um, you have a great business. I mean, you have over 50,000 followers on Instagram, and I didn't look into your other social medias, but you are a powerhouse.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and I was looking, you have a lot of patterns. How many patterns do you offer?
Let's see. I think right now, I think I'm at about 68. So it's a lot.
So tell me, you started at your kitchen table.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I started sewing when my husband was just started working as an attorney when we were living in Los Angeles, and he was working really long hours. We lived in a little apartment, and I had just had my second child. And so I was home alone with the kids a lot, which was really hard. And I needed something that, I needed a hobby other than just watching TV. Which was my hobby at the time because I had quit. I had been working before that, and to go from working to not working was a little jarring.
Yeah.
So I got a sewing machine and I said, I'm going to just sew some little baby things, but I'm never going to make a quilt. Like I'm not even interested in that at
You're
all.
like this.
Yeah, because my mother-in-law is a quilter, and my husband had these bad memories of having to go fabric shopping with her, and so he was like, no quilts. And but within like 3 months of getting the sewing machine, I had made my first quilt. So it didn't take very long, and I never stopped after that. It's just been such a great opportunity to learn new things constantly and to challenge myself in different ways constantly, and especially with growing my business. I have 50,000 Instagram followers, but my Instagram account is like 11 years old. I've been working on it for like a long time. So there was a lot of slow growth at the beginning, and then things like the plaidish quilt have kind of sped things up. But I just try to make a space where people can learn how to get started in this hobby that I really love so much.
Okay, so you feel like you cater to beginners with your tutorials
I
or your
I feel like I'm a good place for people to get started and then develop skills through different patterns. So when I write patterns, I try to think like what skill could somebody learn through making this pattern, and if they were a beginner just learning a new skill, would this be does this make sense? And I have a fabulous tech editor that helps me, and we feel like we um, do a good job of making things accessible to people.
Yeah, well, apparently you do because, you've got people who are buying your patterns, and I just love when I look at your tutorials. you are very organized, and I know you have that you read a ton of books
Mm.
every year, and you have history in the library, and well, you've done a lot of different things, it looks like, but you appear to me to be a very methodical quilter in your approach. Is that true, or would you want to speak to that? Or
I think there's some truth to that, but I'm also very messy. I am not organized in some ways. I'm not organized at all. I do think, I've approached quilting in the way that I work really hard until I reach a place where I need to grow, and then I try to accomplish that. So I try to share tutorials in the same way, where I think people, they're starting out, where are they going to run into a hurdle, and like, how can I help them get over that hurdle? So I think in that way I'm methodical, but in terms of like, am I actually organized? No.
yeah, well, I think we all can relate to
Yeah.
that, because quilting it is a messy hobby. I mean, we're taking beautiful pieces of cloth, cutting them,
Yeah.
cutting them, and then we're pulling them all together, and inevitably it's a mess.
Yeah.
So it's the process of starting clean, organized, sewing, pressing, but then the trimming and the multiplication of a block
Mm-hmm.
and color work. I mean, you do a lot of scrappy
Yeah.
quilts.
That's really my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, and what the reason we're here is because you made this fabulous scrappy quilt.
Yeah, and that was so much fun to make. When you approached me about making that quilt, it was just like the best timing, because I had been looking for a collection that would do exactly what your fabrics do, which is that they are more interesting than a solid, but not, a lot of visual distraction, but would give the quilt some texture and just really pop in the quilt. And I love how the fabrics worked together. I really enjoyed working with them.
What I think, what I know we went back and forth with palette, but I think what my favorite thing is that you chose this really warm, honey neutral background.
Mm,
It's vintage. That's the color of it. It's called vintage,
yeah, it's
and it
so pretty.
pops the whites and the creams and the light yellows without being overly
Yeah,
dramatic. It's
yeah.
I find it to be a very comfortable quilt, and I put it in the lookbook. It's right next to Marcella's rice
Oh, yeah.
bags. You
Yeah.
know, so it looks so comforting. It's comforting is my way to describe it. And this is the Phoebe quilt. So who's Phoebe?
So I started out by naming my patterns. Actually, my first two patterns were named after my son's kindergarten teachers, because I made them for them, and which was that was a lot of fun. And after that, I was like, well, that felt meaningful that I named the pattern after them, and then I gave them the quilt.
Right.
And I thought, who else in my life would I want to name a pattern after? So I kind of started out like that, but I have a lot of patterns now. And I have very quickly run out of names, especially because I try to cycle through the alphabet a little bit, it helps me kind of keep a mental inventory of my patterns, that like, where am I in the alphabet? And it's gotten tricky too, because other people have also been using names for quilts. So I'll have to make sure someone else hasn't already used a name. And sometimes
Right.
I don't do sometimes I plan a quilt a long time in advance, and someone may come out with the pattern after I've already planned it, and then it's gotten to be a bit of a stressful thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I what I have been doing now is, my daughter and I kind of look through our family tree and look for names, or just come up with names that we think fit a pattern, and that was what felt appropriate for that. And I found out later, my sister was pregnant. She had a baby just a few weeks ago, and if it had been a girl, they would have named her Phoebe. They had a boy, and I thought,
Oh,
oh, that just was that felt very meaningful, that name
that's
was what they would have
neat. So
used for their baby. So
it was living in the ether of your family
yeah,
already.
that's kind of what it felt like. So, yeah, it's one of my favorite patterns. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's and I love how it's on the angle too. It's basically, again, it's like a plaid in a
Hmm.
sense, or and then that you're putting the, as I'm looking at it, you're putting the pieces at an angle.
Yeah.
And when you offer your directions, Erica, do you do do you want to make a throw? Do you want to make a twin? Or do you offer those options for folks who have never used your patterns
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, so I when I started out, I kind of had more limited sizing. I would usually just do lap or baby and lap sizes, and then I expanded into twin, and now I try to have all the way at least to queen size, and
Mm-hmm.
then usually king as well. It kind of depends on, if I'm fitting a pattern into a little book, you need to be able to see the pieces, and it gets tricky with the large quilt
Right.
sizes, but I try to go up to king size for most of my patterns. So yeah, I try to give options.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm not very good at giving options.
It's
I'm like
hard.
already overwhelmed. So I'm like, and then so much of my work is color work, and I don't really
Yes.
know what it would look like larger or smaller. So
Yeah.
actually, it's really good. I should probably be asking people more if it's okay to just say, okay, here's the size, and if you make it bigger, you kind of have to figure out that color work, or if you make it smaller, you have to choose,
Right.
right? Because so many of my quilts, they variegate across
Yeah.
the
And people
spectrum.
want them to look like what you made them look like, and it's hard to get
Change,
translate
change
that
scale.
into different
Sometimes,
sizes. I
yeah,
think it's very tricky because there are people who want to buy a pattern and then be really creative with it, and then there are people who want to buy a pattern and make the exactly what they
right,
saw. And
right.
so writing directions for those two different types of people is kind of tricky. I'm sure you've
Yeah,
experienced that as well.
yeah, yeah. Um, so Erica, so let's a little bit more. How old are your kids now? You've
So
got
I have three
three.
kids. Yeah, I have three kids. I have a middle school, a high school, and an elementary. So 8, 13, and
So you're
15.
are you at
So
three different schools?
yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
emails you must
Oh,
be, right? I have
the
three boys.
emails.
The
I
emails are
I just
brutal.
don't even read them anymore. So it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, the emails, the text messages, I feel like I'm constantly getting information from the schools. And next year my son will go to high school and we'll go down to two schools.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
will be good. What about yours?
So mine are
Oh,
all grown up.
okay.
My youngest is now a sophomore at Cal Poly,
Oh,
and
wow.
my middle just graduated from Cal Poly, and he just got offered a real job. He's in
Yay!
finance, so he just got offered. We were thrilled. And my eldest just moved to New York in May, New York City.
Wow. Lots of exciting stuff.
It is, every stage is fun, and every stage is challenging for different reasons. But yeah, I remember those years where Will was at the elementary, Mark was in the middle school, and Tommy in the high school, and I was like, oh my God, trying
Yes.
to keep all those balls in the air. Didn't
No,
happen. Didn't
no,
happen.
it's impossible. You can't do
Yeah,
everything. So you
yeah.
just do your best and hope
And you're
that,
running a business,
yeah.
and you're running. Have you, with your business, kind of gone in and out of being, really gun ho, and then pulling back and saying, I need a break? Um,
Yeah, I I have a little bit. I don't think I do it as much. I have inherited from my mother the workaholic gene, and so I have a really hard time taking a step back, and I don't really find it restful to take a step back. I just kind of need to do something else.
yeah,
I need to just kind of switch it up.
right.
So that has worked better. I know some people need breaks, and I think that's great. I just is not. I'm not a
Doesn't work
break
for you.
person.
Yeah, it
No.
doesn't work for you.
So I just go, 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 go. And then if something's not working, I just try to change gears and do something else. And
Yeah,
that has worked well for me. And part of why I like to write so many patterns is because I like to constantly be doing something different. I don't like to kind of be doing the same thing for a long time.
right.
So I keep saying I'm going to slow down and I just don't.
But you know what? That's okay. I mean, one of the funniest, it made me laugh out loud when I read, you just recently posted on your Instagram, hey, welcome. This is about me post. And I loved it. But what made me laugh out loud was your pet peeve of
Oh,
slow walks, slow walkers. That is my sister to it. My sister is so much
oh
energy, and
yeah.
she walks so fast, she drives fast, and that's just how she's wired. And don't ask me to walk slow. Do not ask me.
No, yeah, no, I know. I'm just always say like, do not get in front of me at Costco if you are on your phone. I cannot. So I've gotten to the point now where like I can't even wait through a drive-through or
Yeah,
something because it just takes so long. I can't deal with waiting for other people. I just have to I'm
Yeah.
a control freak. So
Yeah. And you're not you're not a folk type of folk to stand in line.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I can't.
Yep.
So
Yep.
no,
I
it's
get
all
it.
good.
No,
We're
that
all
is all
different. We
good.
do things
That's
differently.
we
So
all do things differently. Yeah. And we're all happy to have people like you in the world because you're a producer, you're a maker, you're a producer. And, let me ask you, and I know it's like asking someone their favorite, but do you have a favorite quilt pattern um, or something that maybe you're working on? Do you have any quilts you want to show today of like, oh, this is kind of something I'm working
yeah, I
on
can
or
show you what I'm working on right now. I don't know if I can I flip the camera?
yeah, probably,
Probably.
or just turn
Oh
it
yeah. Okay, I
around.
see. I can do it. I got it. Okay.
Oh,
Let me take
oh,
you off the
Erica.
stand. So I'm working on a scrap quilt right now. This is a scrap version of my next pattern, and I'm just slowly working through the colors. And so I have a couple more
Oh, I love it.
diagonal rows
So
to
you've
do,
got
but
like basically it's like a 9 patch, but also a
hmm
half square
yeah.
triangle.
And I used the just leftover fabric from a 108-inch wide backing fabric is the diagonal fabric,
Okay.
and it just worked really well to use a bunch of just stuff I had. So that's what I'm working on right now.
And you're kind of ombreing the color from top left to bottom right a
Yeah,
little
so that's
bit.
what
Like
I'm trying to do.
it's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, it's very messy. It's
Yeah.
I just knocked over rulers when I tried to sit down. So um
Oh, that's
scrap quilts are the messiest quilts. But they're also my favorite. So
what
I
are your
always
favorite?
try to do those.
I'm sorry, what did you say your favorite
Oh,
was?
just making a
Oh,
scrap.
scrap quilt.
If I'm writing a pattern and it's scrap friendly, I try to make a scrap version.
Yes.
Because it's good for using what I've got, and I also want to show people that you don't have to buy new fabric to make a new quilt because those leftovers from previous projects are just waiting to be used, and they have so much potential, and I really like that.
So when you have leftover fabric, do you tend to use like 2.5 inch strips or do you 5 inch squares? Like, do you tend to have your studio when you do kind of reorganize? Do you keep scraps based on scale or based on color or
So
both?
I I try to cut my fabrics down into sizes and then organize them by size. But what usually happens is they go in a bucket until I'm ready to use them, which is but I try to take a couple weeks every year and spend that week just organizing, cutting, pressing scrap pieces so that
Right,
they're ready to use. And right now I'm running really low. So I really need to do that because I just don't have much that's
right,
already cut.
right.
But
And
it
so,
makes the scrap project so much faster and more fun.
right. And so then what are your sizes of scraps that you're cutting?
So I usually do 2.5-inch squares, 3.5, 4.5, and then I'll keep 2.5-inch strips that I don't cut down into a particular length. And then I also do like some 2.5 by 3.5-inch pieces
Okay,
because some reason I end up with a lot of that. And then
right,
I have a whole bucket that's just basically leftover background fabric. So leftover then if I'm making a scrap quilt, I don't need to cut into like white yardage for the
right,
quilt. I can just use leftover because I don't really care if they're exactly the same
right,
white.
right. Makes it more interesting if it's not,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that's a good way to use up some of that. So,
Yeah.
but it's pretty much a mess. I my sewing room is the smallest bedroom in my house, and it's about 8 by 8, and it's very full.
Yeah, 8 by 8 is tight. That's
Yeah.
tight. And you have to have shelves, right? Do you have a closet or your
I
shelves
have
make
a closet, and I have a basically in the middle of the room there's a big table, and it's got my sewing machine, my iron, and my cutting mat on it, and then I have a desk, and then the
right,
shelves behind
right.
me.
So you have to be organized, every period through so you can work,
Yeah.
right?
Otherwise I can't walk in here. So
Right, right, right. Oh, well, this is really fun learning about you. Let's see, I've got some other questions. Oh, okay, this is kind of off topic, but I was curious to learn because you said you read and listen to a ton of books a year.
hmm
Do you have any recommendations on latest books you've read? Because I love listening if I like the voice of the
uh-huh.
author. I especially love listening if it's the author.
Right.
And then I do read at night, and that's how I fall asleep really quick.
That's how I fall asleep too. With an audiobook though. And yeah, I read, I've always been a reader. But then I kind of rediscovered reading through audiobooks about 5 years ago. And yeah, it's the best. So I read about 300 books a year, and yeah, it's a lot. And so probably the best book I've read recently is Anne Patchett's latest book. I
Yes,
don't know if you,
I know
but
Ann Patchett.
yeah, it's read by Meryl Streep, and it's fantastic.
I love Meryl Streep. Wait, what's the title of Ann
uh,
Patchett's latest book?
I'm not
Okay.
sure. So maybe somebody knows.
Well,
Um,
I'm writing that down because I love Ann Patchett and I love Meryl Streep.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm reading a book. Do you like fiction, nonfiction, or is it
usually
both?
fiction.
Hmm.
What are you reading?
Right now, I'm reading Haggitude. Have you
Oh,
heard of it?
no.
So a girlfriend of mine who's in a women's group. It's
Uh-huh.
about women 50 plus and how to embrace your your I don't want to say final years, but your years when you're not responsible for children and maybe you're not working as hard, getting all your
Mm-hmm.
ducks in a row. And oftentimes women feel forgotten in the later years in
Yeah.
life. And this is how to own your power. And it's kind of like the hag, which is the woman she's Welsh or she's Irish, or maybe she's half and half. But it's about like embracing your power
Hmm.
in your later years of life and
That sounds
doing
great.
what you really want to do
Yeah.
because you don't have to do things for anyone else anymore.
Yeah. No, it's
Less.
been really I love that. I love that like as I get older, I'm way less worried about what anybody else is thinking.
Hmm.
Not doing anything for anybody else. I'm just doing things for me and my family, and that's just gonna have to be good enough. So
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, no,
I'll check it out.
latest, I was just read the other day, my latest um, um, inspiration from Annie Lamott is no is a full sentence.
Oh, that's
Is
good. That is
that
good.
good?
Yes.
No,
Yep.
period.
That's it. That you don't have to give a reason. You don't have to give a
Yeah,
justification. Just
right. So
no.
for
That's
all
good.
you gals out there, all you listeners, no is a full sentence. Um, but anyway, I also like to say yes a lot too about a lot of things. So
Yeah. Oh, it's good, but you've got to do what you is right for you and not just you don't do things for other
right.
people all the time. It's because as a mom, especially, you
Yes.
spend a lot of years doing things for other people,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you've got to do stuff for yourself. So
Yeah,
I think
you've
that's
got an
awesome.
empty bucket. Is
Mhm.
your most popular quilt the plaidish quilt, or what is your most
Oh yeah,
popular
for
quilt?
sure.
Okay.
That's definitely the most popular download on my website.
Okay.
And some people have asked, like, am I glad that I made it free, or do I wish I'd charged? But I am so glad that especially with the timing of the pandemic, like making that free was definitely that was worthwhile in a different sense, other than financial. And
Right.
um, so yeah, that's definitely my most popular pattern that costs money is called the Tessa quilt, and it's kind of a woven style pattern. And that
Tessa quilt. I'm going to bring that up.
okay.
TESA.
Yeah,
Okay.
TESSA.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's also so you really like doing this kind of woven
Mm-hmm.
feeling.
Yeah, I do, and that one's fun because there's no Y seams. It's a lot easier than it looks, but it shows a big chunk of fabric, so it's great for like more novelty type prints.
Yes, it's
And
great for novelty
yeah,
prints. Yeah. Any tips on making this quilt? Your
um, I
Phoebe quilt.
I think that my best tip would be just find a background fabric that will work really well with your fabrics. Like you were saying with that vintage color, is that it makes all the other colors pop. So you don't want your fabrics to blend into the background fabric
Right.
with this quilt. So pick something that pops, whether that's white, black, anything in between.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my main tip. But my number one tip is always just only sew with fabrics that you love, because then no matter what, it's a good
You're gonna
experience.
love
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And Colette brought me the bundle. So these are all the new colors. And you
Yes.
worked with these plus many more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of colors in that. It was
Yeah.
the roll up. So you worked with a roll up. We didn't have a roll up to send you. You had to cut them all.
Yeah, I cut
Yeah,
them. Yeah, the pattern can be made with fat quarters or with roll up
right.
strips, but I like the variety of using the roll up, and I think it was worth the time to cut the strips. That
Well, we didn't. Yeah, and we
yeah,
didn't have it. We didn't have the roll up
I
because you're
cut so
making
much
all
fabric,
this.
it's no big deal to me. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and oftentimes when you're working on deadlines, um, and promoting like a new idea, you don't always have the roll up, or you don't always have everything that you need when it's presented to the world.
yeah, and there's
So
something so special with working with fabric that's just coming out and that's being promoted, and it's like a newborn fabric, and you just I feel so lucky that you asked me to work with your fabrics and that you asked me to be here today,
oh,
and I
thank
just
you.
really enjoyed working with your beautiful your use of color is so beautiful, and I just
Oh,
appreciate it so much.
well, thank you, Erica. Yeah, thank you so much. And the same. I'm so glad you said yes. And we've got a lot of pre-orders in the shop.
Oh,
So when
great.
yeah, it's again, this is not the roll up. It's just
Yeah.
another roll up I have in chalk and charcoal, but this is the new colors from 2021. But it's called the Tahoe roll up. And so we ship the Tahoe roll up with the other colors, but you get the pattern from Erica. So this is what I tend to do is I'll work with a pattern maker, which is like my favorite thing to do because you guys are the pros at your pattern, and then I put my fabric in, and it's a really nice combination. And I love collaborating because I writing patterns is not my first love. Working with color is, and working with my fabrics,
Hmm.
of course. So it's really nice when I'm like, hey, do you want to collaborate? And then you're like, I'd love to collaborate.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
it,
really where the magic happens, I feel like, because you design the fabrics and I design the pattern, and then people can take it and they can, put their own spin on it a little bit too. And it's really cool how much collaboration goes into a quilt.
yes, 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 yes. And okay, now about I forgot to ask you about quilting. Do
Okay.
you do your own quilting, or do you have someone else quilted, or what's your
I
process?
primarily do my own quilting. Sometimes I will be short on time, and I have a local quilter. Her name's Heidi Rodley, and she's awesome, and she helps me. She's probably done about 10 or so quilts for me at this point, but I do almost everything on my own. And it's part of the process that I really enjoy doing. So I'm hesitant to
Mhm.
give it up at all, but Heidi does a great job, and I really appreciate her help when I need it
And then do
because I
you
can't
do
always do it.
freeform quilting, or you just do a lot of grid work? Because I
Do a
love
lot
grid
of grid
work.
work. I like
Yeah,
straight lines. I
me
like the
too.
texture. It just feels traditional and just has a great feel to it, and I just really like it.
I find it very meditative to
Yes.
just sew along, and then you really get to look at the fabrics. You get to look at your quilt top.
Hmm.
Um, yes, it is. I don't do a ton of my own quilting because it seems like I'm always on a deadline.
Right.
Um, but I do quilt my own table runners because I've
Oh
been
yeah.
making a ton of those
Yeah.
as gifts and new colorways, and that's matchstick quilting, and I really enjoy that
It's such
process.
a great texture.
Yeah, you were so lovely to work with, and
Oh.
you're my neighbor. I mean, honestly, you're right upstate.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's great talking with you.
thanks everyone. Thanks
Bye.
Erica. Nice seeing you. Bye bye.